Hello and welcome. I am so excited to introduce to you today Kimberly Lechnick. She is a relationship coach known for her expertise in guiding individuals and couples towards fulfilling and harmonious relationships. She has a passion for helping people navigate the complexities of life and business. Kimberly brings a unique blend of compassion, wisdom, and practical tools to her coaching practice. She draws from her own extensive background in psychology and human behavior. Kimberly empowers her clients to understand their own needs and desires while fostering open and effective communication with key people in their business and their personal life. Her approach is deeply rooted in empathy, ensuring a safe space for individuals to explore their emotions, fears, and aspirations. Welcome, Kimberly. I'm so excited about our conversation today.
I'm absolutely honored, Kathryn, for you extending this invitation to me. We were just talking a few minutes ago about using our voice, and for me, I I was never nobody ever put their hand over my mouth, so to speak, but I felt like it wasn't welcomed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now that I really know the truth of the matter and how God's leading me to say, this is how I created you. I want you to walk in this way, and embracing it. It's really a beautiful thing.
That's amazing. I love it. Walk and talk. So tell us a little bit, Kimberly, how did you get here? How did you get into this specialty?
Oh, thank you so much for that. So without going with the long version, have over 20 years experience supporting children and families in both the childcare industry and speech and language therapy. And so I have a vast amount of experience. So along that journey, not to dive into the weeds too much on that, but to dive into that journey, I then later along the lines, I had gotten married, had my two boys, and I was looking, for that next way, that next level to serve. And so God, I call them these conversations with God, and he was guiding me, and I was doing my best to be obedient and listen in. And then coaching came across my desk, and yes, I mean, it totally resonated with me. And I thought, yes, this is the way I'm going to serve, but it's interesting, Kathryn, because I knew that, but I didn't know the how. And a lot of times when we're given these dreams, right? When we're given these dreams, we know what the what is, we don't know what the how is, but we learn that along the way. And so here I am sitting with you, um, just so blessed, to be having this conversation. And I know it's going to be an empowering one.
Awesome. I'm so excited as well. And I love, I was just sitting here thinking about, that communication piece. You started off with like speech therapy for the young children, and you have to then communicate with the parents. I'm just wondering about that shift of, going from helping children communicating to helping maybe it was their parents, maybe it was, something similar. Like, what made that transition, that shift?
You mean the shift from working in those industries to
Well,
doing what I do now?
yeah, working with the kids in the speech pathology types of things.
Well, what's really interesting is that I mentioned to you about feeling silenced,
Aha.
in a sense. And one of the interesting experiences I had with the kiddos, because I both address just regular articulation, um, and their language challenges. And that included working with children that were locked inside of themselves in some way, shape, or form. And so I feel like this, again, not knowing the how, right? Because what I know about my journey as an entrepreneur is this, it's more than that. It's about raising our consciousness, right? And
Yeah.
it's about being who we are and who we were designed to be at our soul level. And in order to accomplish that, we need to be brave enough. We need to be courageous enough. We need to be able to walk the path and be vulnerable when it feels really scary.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there were, there was a lot of scare there, right? But I know now with unequivocally that this is what I was created for. So to answer your question, that's part of the journey. And sometimes we can't explain it. I
Mm-hmm.
just know that working in the childcare industry was almost like a boot camp for me,
Oh.
so to speak, because I was learning so many things about family.
Oh,
There's
so
no
interesting.
mistake in that. There's
Yeah,
no mistake in that. It was
right.
divine. It was in divine order.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's really interesting how you had sort of that training boot camp with the kids. And I thought it was really interesting that you found much of it, not maybe not all of it, but that the kids were locked inside of themselves.
Yeah, when I was doing therapy, I was actually talking about this with a colleague the last couple of weeks. And when I would sit, we were creating patterning for
Hmm.
these kids
Hmm.
that you would think, again, I go back to the gratitude practice and why it's so important, right? Imagine being in a space where you can't speak, right? Because you don't have the brain wiring in order to do so. So one of my roles was to lay down the foundation, to put it in layman's terms, is to lay down that foundation for that wiring. And we had a lot of success over that. And I'm talking early intervention because when I first started, I did not start in early intervention, but I later became a proponent in early intervention because I saw what it could do.
Hmm.
Now, in most cases, we saw absolute success where whatever that success meant for that kiddo. But then there were some cases, and I'm thinking of them now, where their parents had to really kind of come to this place and understand that their child would not maybe have a long lifespan
Mm.
and that there was more to not necessarily understanding this language patterning that was so important. Just you and I having a conversation, there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah, yeah, really, really interesting. And then I'm curious then about um, sort of the individual who doesn't have that early intervention, but they're locked up inside of themselves. How do you help the adults, the not so early interventioners? If you could just, how do you start? Well, how do you start with them?
Well, it definitely is. I've always treated the relationship as a triangle. It is about partnering with the family. It's about partnering with the family. And a lot of times, again, we had a comprehensive program. So we had behaviorists, OT, PT, speech. So we had a comprehensive group. So there were, in a lot of cases, some counseling that needed to go far beyond what I would offer in terms of supporting the family system. Because using that instance where the little girl was not going to have a long lifespan, these were young parents, and they were thinking that the 20 or 30 hours of therapy that they were receiving would definitely, I mean, that was like the gold standard. There would be no reason why their daughter at 2 years of age was not going to develop this patterning. So yeah, it's really kind of vast, but I really take that and I relate those experiences to what I do in coaching. And I think that's what makes my background extremely unique. Taking these 20 years serving children and families in these unique ways, and then doing more one-on-one and more group situation where we're focused on the actual dynamics of the relationship.
Yeah, I love that concept of the dynamics of the relationship and the whole triangle image you gave us. There is a triangle or a pyramid, shall we say? That just popped into my head that we need to consider when having those communications. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that triangle?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say that, I look at it as a partnership. So, whether or not we're challenged, by a special need or we're looking at the relationship itself, right? So when we're looking at the relationship itself and we're looking at it from a triangle perspective, all parties need to be partnering together, right? So if it's a challenge with our young person, our teen, in our life and that relationship, then it's a partnership. It's a collaboration, right? It's like, how can we relate best with one another? Right? It's not like this child is the problem. Let's fix the child and then everyone will be happy, right? Or
Right.
if you're taking a couple situation and you're saying, there's two people in this coupling, it's not just one, it's not just the other. We both have responsibility in that. And
Yeah.
again, with the self, it goes the same way. Are we partnering with ourselves? Do we understand who we are? Do we know what our core values are? Do we have a gratitude practice? What is it that we want for ourselves in terms of our goals? All of these things are very important.
I think that is such a really, really interesting. And as you were talking, some of the, just emotional intelligence just comes to my mind. It's not your fault. It's not my fault, but there's a disconnect. So why don't we get curious about what's going on and try to find that, uh, I don't want to say compromise, but the resolution, whatever that looks like, because doesn't necessarily have to be a compromise because once you come to an understanding, oh, Kimberly, now I understand what you're saying. Oh, I never even thought about it that way. So yeah, I get it. So coming at it with that curiosity, I think is huge. And the other thing you said was about, are you partnering with yourself? Are you taking that time to really understand your core values? When you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Um, I've done some practices around that, so it's something that I sort of know, but I've never asked anybody that question. And, it's not something you sort of know it, but unless you really sort of put it down on paper and really focus on that and say, moving forward in my life, if I'm faced with a decision, a question, a direction, how does this fit with my core values?
it's such a it's such an empowering conversation.
Yeah.
It's such an empowering conversation, especially, right? We haven't even kind of dipped into the business side of things, right? And
Right.
there's a lot of ladies out there that are in these positions, right? And when we think of these foundational building blocks, right? These are necessary in order for us to be in these empowered positions, right? We need to
Yeah.
know what our core values are. Do we have a gratitude practice? Are we engaging in regular self-care routine?
Right. Exactly. And I've had some conversation with other people about the self-care routine, and it's more than just going to the spa and getting your nails done and going for tea with friends. It really is about those practices that we just talked about. And it really is about figuring yourself out. How do you feel in your meat suit today? What is your mind or your brain working on today? Are you full of gratitude today or are you not? Are
You
you
know,
full of, shall I
I
say, piss and vinegar, which is fine.
I love that. I love that because again, going back to that pyramid or that triangle, right? Are all of these foundational pieces in place? And what that does is it's not about perfection. There is no perfection, right? We were all fearfully and wonderfully made. What it's about is it's kind of like a flag, right? For us.
Mm,
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I'm feeling kind of punchy today. Uh-oh. You know what? I did not prioritize my time for my self-care this morning.
yeah.
Or I just got through the holidays and I was spinning a half dozen plates. Oh, okay. Take a breather. I did not prioritize myself during this time. And I love what you said about the massage and things like that. But I will tell you this, when we're looking at taking care of ourselves, I think those things are very important. You
They are.
know, I think the massage, like for me, it is a part of my routine, not from the standpoint that it's like to tell everybody about it. It's to take care of my body
Yes.
because I have had traumatic experience. So we know if we dive into that, we know that trauma does things far past that experience or that isolated moment.
Right.
It lives in our body,
Yes.
and sometimes it'll come up and we don't even know it. And so the massage and some of these other things can really help us integrate our lives a little bit better.
I completely agree. And that being said, I believe like a massage therapist that understands that whole somatic piece is
Mhm.
much more effective in that way
Mhm.
than just, dare I say, an average massage therapist who gives you a Swedish massage
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I absolutely agree. Having been in the hands-on industry myself, I do cranial sacral therapy. It is
Ooh.
extremely important. And I think, like what you said, when you can get that somatic piece in there, because our bodies hold everything if we can't release them. So going to that depth, I think, is very much self-care. But I was just talking about the average.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hear you.
And I know some people say getting their nails done is a spiritual experience. And if you can really put yourself in that space, because I have done that and I think
Mhm.
that's great, but a lot of people, they don't. It's very, very superficial. If you can go deep with yourself and with the moment, it can be very therapeutic.
I
So,
agree. I
yeah,
agree because again, we can't speak for someone else and how they receive that. we can only speak to ourselves. And so I think again, it goes a long way when we're really being kind and compassionate.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Kimberly, this has been such a wonderful conversation. If people want to get a hold of you or get in touch and find out a little bit more about you, how do they do that?
Kathryn, I love to have conversations, like initial conversations and connections. And so I would love for someone to reach out on the LinkedIn platform. That is my home base. And I would love to have a conversation. So just reach out in the DMs and we'll schedule a conversation and yeah, just kind of explore relationship. I think that for me, it's all about a good fit. And that's how you do it.
Yeah, amen. And I'll have all of this in the show notes as well. So if you're in the car and you didn't get it written down, that's okay. It'll be in the show notes. Kimberly, thank you so much for being with me today, and I look forward to further conversations.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Catherine.